A mysterious customer walks into the shop, but no one suspects that her presence will change everything and uncover secrets that will decide everyone's fate. The workshop hummed with energy as Leroy and Juan stood near the entrance, surrounded by the comforting noise of tools clinking and engines rumbling. The scent of motor oil and grease filled the air, mingling with the distant sound of laughter from the other mechanics. Leroy, a tall man with slicked-back hair and an air of confidence, leaned against a workbench, arms crossed. His gaze flicked over the busy shop floor, assessing every customer that walked in as if they were merely numbers on a profit sheet. "You know, Juan," Leroy began, a smirk playing on his lips, "if you want to win that manager position, you need to think bigger. It's all about maximizing profits. Look at those customers. They're just waiting to be sold something." Juan, shorter and with a more rugged appearance, wiped his hands on a rag as he listened. "Leroy, it's not just about the money. These people trust us with their vehicles. We should treat them like family. Would you really take advantage of someone who's already struggling?" Leroy shrugged, dismissing Juan's words with a wave of his hand. "Family? That's a nice sentiment, but this is business. You have to strike while the iron's hot. If someone looks like they can afford it, you pitch them the premium package. Why offer a simple fix when you can sell them a brand new part?" Juan shook his head, a hint of disappointment in his eyes. "That's not how I see it. If we provide honest service, they'll come back. Trust builds loyalty, not just a quick buck. You might make more in the short term, but in the long run, we'll have a solid customer base." "Solid customer base?" Leroy laughed, a sharp sound that cut through the workshop's chatter. "You're dreaming, my friend. This is a competitive industry. The manager needs to be sharp, ruthless even. If you can't adapt, you'll be left behind." As their conversation unfolded, the door to the workshop swung open and a middle-aged man stepped in, his face lined with weariness. His worn-out car was parked outside, barely holding itself together. Leroy's eyes lit up with opportunity as he approached the man, his confidence palpable. "Welcome. I see you've brought us an old friend," Leroy said with a grin, gesturing towards the car. "We can get that fixed up in no time, but I must warn you, it'll require some serious work. You wouldn't want to risk driving it in its current state, would you?" The man frowned, glancing towards his car and then back at Leroy, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. "I just need an oil change and maybe a brake check. Can't afford too much right now." Juan stepped forward, sensing the man's discomfort. "Hey there, I'm Juan. We can definitely help you with that. I'd suggest starting with the oil change and checking the brakes. It's a more affordable fix and we'll make sure everything's safe without breaking the bank." Leroy shot Juan a disapproving look, the tension between them palpable. "You really think that's the best approach? What if something else is wrong? You could be leaving money on the table." Juan remained calm, his voice steady. "It's not about leaving money on the table, Leroy. It's about being honest. This man deserves the best service we can provide, not a sales pitch based on fear." The man, caught between the two contrasting philosophies, shifted uncomfortably. "I just want to make sure my car is safe to drive. I don't need any unnecessary repairs." As Leroy and Juan continued their debate, the atmosphere in the workshop grew thicker with tension. Leroy scoffed at Juan's methods, convinced that his aggressive tactics were the right way to go. "You'll see, Juan. You may think you're being noble, but I'll be the one in the manager's seat. Customers want solutions, not hand-holding." Juan took a deep breath, maintaining his composure. "We'll see about that. At the end of the day, it's the customers who will decide based on the service they receive, and I intend to give them the best." As the afternoon wore on, both men found themselves anxiously awaiting their boss's announcement regarding the promotion. Leroy paced the floor, mentally rehearsing how he would present his case for the managerial position, while Juan focused on the task at hand, determined to provide every customer with the honest service they deserved. The competition was fierce, and both men were prepared to fight for what they believed was right. Little did they know, the arrival of an unsuspecting customer would soon test their convictions in ways they never anticipated. As the sun streamed through the grimy windows of the Chris workshop, a seemingly ordinary woman stepped inside, her appearance unassuming in a simple, slightly oversized sweater and jeans. She glanced around, her eyes scanning the busy environment filled with the sounds of tools clanking and engines revving. Leroy, standing at the reception, instantly registered her presence, a smirk creeping onto his face. He saw her casual attire as a golden opportunity, a chance to push an expensive repair plan on someone who looked like she wouldn't know better. "Welcome to Chris Automotive," Leroy called out, his voice dripping with faux enthusiasm. "What can we do for you today? I see you have a car that needs some serious attention. A little investment now can save you a lot later." He leaned forward, arms crossed, a predatory glint in his eye. The woman hesitated, her brow furrowing slightly. I just need a checkup. I think there's something wrong with the brakes." "A checkup? Oh, I think you'll need more than that. I mean, look at this beauty." He gestured toward her car, parked outside. "You wouldn't want to risk your life over a few pennies, would you? I can set you up with a complete overhaul and it won't even break the bank." His tone was velvety smooth, a practiced charm designed to disarm. Before she could respond, Juan emerged from the workshop, wiping his hands on a rag. He noticed the tension in the air and the look of discomfort on the woman's face. Sensing Leroy's manipulative tactics, he stepped forward, his demeanor warm and inviting. "Hello there," he said, offering a genuine smile. "I'm Juan. I overheard you mention brakes. Can I take a look at your car without any pressure? I want to make sure you get exactly what you need." The woman turned her attention to Juan, visibly relieved by his approach. "That would be great, thank you. I just want to make sure everything is all right." Juan nodded, gesturing for her to follow him. "Of course. Let's take a look together. I'll explain everything as we go." He led her outside where her car was parked and began to inspect it carefully, his movements deliberate and thorough. Leroy, watching from the entrance, felt a pang of frustration. "What does he think he's doing?" he muttered under his breath. "He's going to scare her off with his honesty." He crossed his arms, scowling as he considered how he might still salvage the situation. As Juan examined the vehicle, he pointed to various components, explaining what he was checking and why. "These brakes look good, but I'll check the pads and rotors to be sure. It's always better to be safe than sorry," he said, maintaining eye contact with the woman, who seemed to appreciate his candidness. "Thank you, Juan. I really appreciate that," she replied, her voice softening. Leroy seemed a bit intense. "That's one way to put it," Juan chuckled lightly, trying to ease her tension. "But I believe in doing what's right for the customer, not just what's profitable for the shop. You deserve to know exactly what your car needs." The woman nodded, visibly more at ease. "I like that approach. It's refreshing." Meanwhile, Leroy stood just inside the shop, his mind racing. He knew that if he didn't act quickly, Juan could win the woman's trust completely, which could jeopardize his chances at the managerial position. He was determined to turn the tide in his favor, even if it meant resorting to underhanded tactics. "Hey, are you sure you want to let him handle things?" Leroy called out, feigning casual concern. "He's a nice guy, but he tends to take his time. You might end up with a bigger bill for all that thoroughness." Juan glanced over his shoulder, irritation flaring at Leroy's interference. "Leroy, I'm just making sure she gets the right service. I'm not here to rush her or inflate charges unnecessarily." "Right," Leroy sneered, his tone dripping with sarcasm, "because that's how you win customers, by taking forever. Some of us have to think about the bottom line." The woman looked uncertain for a moment, caught between the two contrasting philosophies. Juan quickly stepped in, his voice calm and reassuring. "I understand that you want to save money, but saving money shouldn't come at the cost of safety. I'm here to help you make the best decision." Leroy's face darkened as he realized that Juan's sincerity was cutting through his attempts to manipulate the situation. The tension hung thick in the air, and he knew he had to think fast, but for now it was clear that the woman was entrusting Juan with her car, a decision that could alter the dynamics of their competition forever. As Juan bent down to inspect the car, a sense of purpose filled him. The vehicle, a modest sedan with faded paint and a few rust spots, had seen better days. He could feel the weight of the moment. This was more than just a job to him. It was a chance to show that honesty and integrity mattered in their line of work. He opened the hood and began his assessment, meticulously checking the engine components while keeping an eye on the woman who stood nearby, visibly anxious. Don't worry, ma'am, Juan said gently, glancing back at her. It's just a few minor issues that can be fixed easily. I'll explain everything as we go. The woman nodded, her worry beginning to fade. Thank you. I've had some bad experiences with mechanics before, she admitted, her voice tinged with apprehension. Juan straightened up and met her gaze, sincerity in his eyes. I understand completely. I want you to feel comfortable with the repairs and their costs. Let's start with the oil change. It's overdue and can cause more serious problems if left unattended. He pointed to the oil filter and the dipstick, illustrating his points with care. As he detailed the necessary repairs, Leroy stood in the corner of the workshop, arms crossed and brow furrowed. He watched the interaction with growing irritation. I can't believe this, he muttered under his breath. He's wasting time and scaring away potential profit. Not long after, Leroy approached a couple of waiting customers, adopting his usual charm. Hey folks, you know with Juan's methods, you might be waiting forever for your repairs. Why not let me take a look at your vehicles? I can get you in and out in no time, and you'll get the best service around. He flashed a confident smile, trying to rally support for his aggressive sales tactics. Really? One of the customers, a young man with a skeptical expression, asked. Isn't it better to take your time and do it right? That's what we're looking for? Leroy waved a hand dismissively. Time is money. You want to save money, don't you? Trust me. I know how to get you the best deals. He leaned in closer, lowering his voice. Don't fall for Juan's slow play. He's just trying to win points, but you need someone who knows how to get things done fast. Meanwhile, Juan continued to explain the repairs to the woman. You'll need a new air filter too. It's not urgent, but it will help your car run more efficiently. He paused and looked at her thoughtfully. And I'd recommend keeping an eye on the brakes. They're starting to wear down. It's not critical today, but it's something to consider down the road. So, how much will all of this cost? She asked, her brow furrowed. Juan smiled, feeling a wave of confidence. With the oil change and air filter replacement, I can keep it under $100. The brakes can wait for now, and I'll give you a call when the parts come in. Only fix what's necessary. The woman's expression softened. That's very reasonable, thank you. I appreciate your honesty. Just then, the boss walked into the shop, clipboard in hand, his presence casting a shadow over the ongoing conversations. Leroy straightened up, his demeanor shifting from casual to calculated. He knew this was the moment he had been waiting for, the chance to demonstrate his superiority over Juan. Good day, everyone, the boss announced, surveying the room. His gaze landed on Juan and the woman. What's the situation here? Juan, not one to shy away from the spotlight, stepped forward confidently. I was just explaining the necessary repairs to this customer, sir. She's had a few issues with her car, and I'm trying to ensure she understands everything before proceeding. Leroy seized the opportunity. You see, sir, Juan is taking too long with this customer. I can handle multiple cars at once, and I'm sure they'd prefer a quicker service. He flashed a smile that felt more like a smirk. The boss raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Is that so? Well, let's see how this unfolds. I'm observing closely today. He glanced between the two men, sensing the tension brewing in the air. As the boss moved around the workshop, Juan felt a surge of determination. He wouldn't let Leroy's tactics intimidate him. After all, he believed in the value of integrity, and he would show that to the boss, the customers, and, most importantly, to himself. The atmosphere in the Chris workshop was thick with tension as the woman, now reassured by Juan's sincerity, decided to leave her car for repairs. She glanced around the bustling shop, a place filled with the sounds of tools clanging and engines humming, before turning her attention back to Juan. I really appreciate your help. It's rare to find someone who treats customers like people rather than just a paycheck, she said, a warm smile spreading across her face. Juan returned her smile, feeling a swell of pride. Thank you. I believe in doing the right thing. Cars can be tricky, but honesty should never be one of them. He gestured towards the repair area, ready to get to work. In the corner of his eye, he spotted Leroy leaning against a workbench, a smirk plastered on his face. Juan knew the competitive atmosphere would only intensify from here, especially with Leroy's relentless pursuit of profit. As Juan began to work on the woman's car, carefully inspecting each component, he couldn't shake the feeling of Leroy's gaze boring into him. The clang of tools and the whir of machines surrounded him, yet it felt as though a storm was brewing just beyond the repair bay. Leroy, fueled by a mix of jealousy and determination, decided to put his plan into action. "Hey guys," Leroy called out to a couple of fellow employees who were gathered nearby. "Did you hear about Juan's friendly approach? I mean, sure, he's nice, but how much money are we actually making with his methods?" His voice dripped with sarcasm. "Customers want quality, not a buddy. We need to show them we mean business." Juan, focused on the task at hand, tried to tune out Leroy's words. He could hear the murmur of agreement from a few of the other mechanics, but he remained resolute. He explained the repairs to the woman, detailing each step with clarity. "You see, ma'am, this part here is perfectly fine. We just need to replace this little component. It's a simple fix, and I'll make sure it's done right," he said, his voice steady and confident. Despite Juan's efforts to maintain his composure, he could feel the shadow of Leroy's manipulations creeping into the minds of his co-workers. He took a deep breath, reminding himself that his work would speak for itself. As he tightened a bolt, he overheard Leroy again, this time whispering to another mechanic, "How long do you think he'll last? Sooner or later, the customers will realize he's just wasting their time." Juan clenched his jaw but continued to focus on the woman's car. He knew that Leroy's tactics were designed to undermine him, but he refused to let them distract him from providing the best service possible. "It's important to me that you feel confident in the work we do," he said to the woman, who was watching him with an appreciative gaze. "Your safety is my top priority." Leroy, realizing his attempts were failing, ramped up his efforts. "You know, I've been in this business long enough to know that flattery gets you nowhere. Just wait until the boss shows up to evaluate us," he sneered, his voice loud enough for others to hear. "He'll see who's really delivering results." Just then, the workshop door swung open and the boss entered, clipboard in hand. The air shifted instantly, tension thickening as everyone turned their attention to him. Leroy straightened up, a new gleam in his eye. He flashed a quick grin at the boss, attempting to mask the underlying panic he felt as he wondered what the boss might witness today. "Good morning, everyone. I'm here to observe," the boss announced, his tone neutral but authoritative. "I want to see how you interact with customers today. Remember, integrity is key." Juan's heart raced, but he pushed aside his anxiety. He was determined to show the boss that honesty and hard work could prevail over cunning. As he continued working on the car, he caught Leroy's eye, and for a brief moment their gazes locked in a silent battle of wills. Leroy's arrogance was palpable, but Juan remained steadfast, committed to his principles. With the boss watching, the pressure mounted and the stakes became painfully clear. Juan knew that this moment could dictate not only his future but also the integrity of the workshop. As he tightened the last screws, he could feel the weight of his colleagues' expectations and the looming shadow of Leroy's deceitful tactics. The tension in the air was electric, and as Juan wiped the sweat from his brow, he prepared for whatever challenges lay ahead, determined to uphold his values in the face of adversity. The atmosphere in the workshop was charged with anticipation as the woman returned to pick up her car. She walked in, her demeanor radiating warmth and gratitude. Juan, who had been busy tidying up his workspace, looked up with a smile that reflected his genuine care for customers. "Good afternoon. How are you feeling about your car?" he asked, stepping forward to greet her. "Oh, Juan, I can't thank you enough. The car runs beautifully now," she replied, her eyes sparkling with relief. "You really took the time to explain everything to me, and I appreciate that. It's rare to find someone who cares so much." Leroy, who had been lurking nearby, felt a jolt of jealousy at the exchange. He approached with a forced smile, his voice dripping with insincerity. Yes, our little miracle worker. But you know, if you ever need anything more substantial, I'm the one you should turn to. I have some great ideas for upgrades that could really enhance your vehicle. Just think of the possibilities." He leaned in slightly, attempting to exude charm, but it came off as desperate. The woman looked at Leroy, slightly taken aback. "I appreciate the offer, but I think I'll stick with what Juan recommended. It's just what I needed, nothing more." Juan, overhearing the conversation, felt a mixture of anger and disappointment. He couldn't stand Leroy's manipulative tactics, especially when it came to a customer who had trusted him. With determination, he stepped forward to confront Leroy. "You know, it's really disappointing to see you treating our customers like they're just a means to an end. This isn't about selling upgrades, it's about providing honest service." Leroy scoffed, folding his arms in defiance. "What do you know about business? People want the best. And if they're too clueless to recognize that, it's not my fault. This is how you succeed in this industry, Juan. Wake up." Juan's voice rose, drawing the attention of their colleagues who were working nearby. "Success isn't about deception, Leroy. It's about integrity and building trust with our customers. You can't keep improving your numbers if you're driving them away with your lies." "Lies? I'm just being smart. You think the boss wants to hear about your friendly chats with customers? He wants results," Leroy shot back, his tone sharp and defensive. The tension in the workshop was palpable as employees paused to watch the exchange. A few exchanged glances, unsure of how to react. It was clear that the competition between Leroy and Juan had escalated beyond mere ambition. It had become a fundamental clash of values. Just then, their boss, Mr. Crispin, entered the workshop, sensing the charged atmosphere. "What's going on here?" he asked, his authoritative presence commanding immediate attention. "Juan, Leroy, I hope this isn't what I think it is." Juan took a breath, calming himself for the moment. "I was just trying to advocate for our customers, sir. Leroy's approach is unorthodox, to say the least." Leroy, unwilling to back down, interjected, "It's called being a businessman, Mr. Crispin. It's how you turn a profit, by knowing your clientele. They don't always know what's good for them." Mr. Crispin's eyes narrowed as he studied both men. "This workshop thrives on our reputation for honesty and quality service. If I'm getting reports of manipulative tactics from my employees, we have a serious problem." He gestured toward the gathered staff. "You all know how critical it is for us to maintain trust with our customers. If that goes, so do we." The tension between Leroy and Juan hung in the air, thick with unspoken words and challenges. "I expect you both to refocus on what matters," Mr. Crispin continued, his voice firm but calm. "We are not just here to make money. We are here to serve our community with respect and integrity. I suggest you both take a moment to think about your actions and their implications." As Mr. Crispin walked away, the workshop erupted into murmurs. Employees exchanged opinions about the confrontation, some siding with Juan's values while others were still lured by Leroy's aggressive charm, but deep down, the seeds of doubt had been planted regarding Leroy's methods, and Juan could only hope that he had made an impression worth considering. In the silence that followed, Juan took a deep breath, hoping that this confrontation would lead to a turning point, not just for himself, but for the entire workshop. The battle for the managerial position had revealed much more than just competition. It had shed light on the true essence of their work and the kind of legacy they wanted to leave behind. As the atmosphere in the workshop became increasingly charged, the woman who had quietly observed the unfolding drama stepped forward, her demeanor shifting from passive to authoritative. "Excuse me," she interjected, her voice calm but firm. The bustling sounds of the workshop momentarily faded as everyone turned to her. "I believe it's time for some honesty here." Leroy's heart raced, his mind racing through possibilities. He had been so confident in his ability to manipulate the situation to his advantage. "What do you mean?" he stammered, trying to regain control of the narrative. "We were just discussing the best ways to serve our customers." The woman raised an eyebrow, an inscrutable expression crossing her face. "Serve your customers? Or serve your own interests?" She took a deep breath, and the tension in the room thickened, anticipation hanging palpably in the air. "I'm not just any customer. I am the owner's daughter, and I'm here to assess the ethical standards of this shop." Gasps rippled through the workshop, and Juan's eyes widened in astonishment. He had treated her with such respect, never guessing the true nature of her identity. Leroy, on the other hand, felt the ground shift beneath him, his facade beginning to crack. I didn't know," he stammered, desperately seeking a way to salvage his reputation. The woman continued, her gaze shifting to Juan. I witnessed how you treated me, Juan. Your integrity and dedication to providing honest service speak volumes about your character. You treated me as a person, not just another opportunity for profit. She smiled warmly at him, and he felt a wave of relief wash over him, knowing his actions hadn't gone unnoticed. Leroy's face flushed with embarrassment and anger. But I was just trying to help the customer get the best service possible. Isn't that what we all want? His voice was defensive, tinged with desperation. I mean, who wouldn't want to ensure their car is in perfect shape? The boss, who had been observing the exchange quietly from a distance, finally stepped in, crossing his arms over his chest. Leroy, you have a pattern of behavior that's not just unethical, it's harmful to the reputation of this shop. Your tactics may yield short-term profits, but they ultimately drive away loyal customers. His tone was stern, and the finality of his words hung in the air. Leroy glanced around at his coworkers, who were now looking at him with a mix of disappointment and disbelief. I didn't mean any harm, he muttered, his bravado crumbling. I thought I was helping. But at what cost? The boss replied, his voice unwavering. Today you've been given a chance to reflect on how you can better serve our customers. I'm giving you an opportunity to undergo training in customer relations. If you truly want to succeed, you must understand that integrity and respect are the pillars of this business. Leroy nodded, slowly, the weight of reality settling in. I understand, he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. The realization that the path he had been following was not sustainable was beginning to dawn on him. Juan, still processing the whirlwind of events, felt an overwhelming sense of pride. The woman's revelation and the boss's decision had turned the tide in a way he had never anticipated. As the dust began to settle, she turned to Juan once more. I want to congratulate you. Your commitment to honesty and respect for customers is what this shop needs. Effective immediately, I'm promoting you to manager. Cheers erupted from the other employees, and even Leroy managed a reluctant smile, genuinely impressed by Juan's integrity. Juan felt a swell of emotion, gratitude filling his heart as he looked around at his colleagues. Thank you, he said, his voice steady. I promise to lead this workshop with integrity, ensuring that everyone is treated with the respect they deserve, no matter their appearance. As the workshop buzzed back to life, the dynamics had shifted. Leroy had been given a chance to redeem himself, and Juan was poised to lead with principles that would resonate throughout the shop. The lesson learned that day would echo in the lives of everyone present, a reminder that true success is built not on deception but on honesty and respect for all.